to our film festival selection process. We'll have a chance to meet my team at Red Flight Pictures, also just a few members of the selection committee here at the Fort Myers Beach Film Festival. We're giving you guys top secrets of how to get into festivals. That's not true. But yeah, no, we just want to talk about kind of what our process looks like, tips and trips that we look into of getting into film festivals. We have a couple people on here who are also judges in other film festivals out there as well, so keep that in mind. So let's bring these folks on. The first person we're gonna bring on is Z. Joseph Geis. What's up, buddy?
Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you. Well, thank you
for
joining us. We're gonna bring on Crystal Weaver. Hey, Crystal.
Hey.
And then we're gonna bring on, good. And then we're gonna bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Keith Giosa, and we're just gonna continue to censor Joe here with that. Oh man, well guys, it's good to see you. Oddly enough, we're not able to see each other in person right now because I know you guys are calling from all over the place. But for those who are watching, guys, this is just some of the selection committee for the Fort Myers Beach International Film Festival. So thank you guys so much for all the hard work you guys been doing, not only on the previous selections but the selections that we're currently getting. It's been a lot. So the first question I'm going to have for all of us, really, because I mean this is a big conversation, is right. What do you guys look for in a good short film? So when you guys, or a good film in general. So when you're watching a film, what's the first thing you guys are looking for in terms of giving us a higher rating in the film in the judging process, I guess. We'll start with you, Joe, because Joe, you also are a judge in an LA film festival that we won't bring up the name because
okay.
People might be watching. Tell us what your process is, and we'll go to somebody else.
Okay. First of all, I'm looking to be pulled into a story. So to kind of forget I'm watching a film and be invested in what's happening with the characters. Simplicity. Sometimes people fall into a trap of trying to be too intelligent in a short period of time. So just tell us a simple story. And just, you look for good elements, like sound is very important. Usually, too, if a story means something to somebody, like if it's personal, I find that sometimes impacts me emotionally.
Yeah. Is anybody, Joe, you have a weird echo going on. Is anybody else doing that? That's just me.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Strange. Yeah, I think so. I mean, definitely from a standpoint of like quality of film, I think is obviously important. Sound is the biggest part of, I know for us as a committee is listening to sound. As Joe tries to fix his sound right now, it's kind of ironic.
Does that help?
Because your sound is realistically half your picture, and it's hard. It's easy to forgive really like okay picture. We can forgive that, but I think sound is a major part. The sound is really, really rough. It's really hard for anyone to like just get into the story of the process. I mean, Keith, I know you are a sound man, so you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting relationship of sound and film, especially when you're talking about independent short films, because it's typically the last thing that anybody thinks about, last thing that anybody budgets for, and because it's typically so far in the process, writers, directors, and editors are so worn out from the process of getting to that point that it feels like a place where you can relax, and it shouldn't be. As an observer, the thing to be aware of is if I'm seeing something on camera or on screen from the film that maybe just isn't keeping my interest, my body's going to physically avert its gaze. It's going to look somewhere else. But with sound, you can't do that. I don't think anybody's ever sat in a theater and covered their ears. So it's constantly penetrating. So everything from how dialogue is recorded to the music, either you're choosing or hopefully The composer in me wants everybody to hire somebody to write their music for them if you can. What kind of music are you using or composing, choosing for it, and then what the overall mix, how it just works together. To Joe's point, no matter what, whether it's sound, picture, or anything else, I want to be pulled into the story. Whether it's something that I can relate to from personal experience, or if it's something that I can relate to because I'm empathetic to the characters, the plot line, whatever that central tension is, whatever it is, if it pulls me in and I forget how much time I've been spending watching that film, whether it's a 5-minute film or a 25-minute film, then it's almost rating it as difficult because you lost track of your time, but that always curves positive for me.
Yeah. And just for those who are, and Crystal, I want to definitely hear your answer to that too. So I also want to talk about, for those who are watching, kind of what our selection process looks like. So I think we, as a film festival, want to be very transparent with everybody. So our festival goes through a 3-stage process level, where the first level is, they usually call them like student judges, I guess, or people who are all over like just learning filmmaking, or filmmaking is like a hobby for them. Or they're just movie goers. So we try to keep the judging team, the first level, pretty open to anybody, because as professional filmmakers, that's sort of biased about like, oh, this is a really good film, or you have people who are just good moviegoers. They can watch the film and still judge them without having that bias of like, oh, what's the sound? What's the editing look like? What's like, so we try to keep that pretty open to everybody. And then it goes, to level 2, and then it goes to the, us, and obviously there's a couple more people who can't be on this. So it goes to that hierarchy to keep it fair. And when it gets to us at that point, it's, we're looking at the ones that have already been rated pretty high by several people at this point in time. So, Crystal, I mean, as a judge and a selection committee, what are you looking for in a good film?
Yeah, honestly, just like everyone else has said, like a really good story that just pulls me in. Something like a really exciting, inciting incident in the beginning of the film where it just kind of catches you off guard, or something that's fascinating. And, stories can be about anything, right? And I don't want to be distracted by other technical elements. Sound is so important. Just the filmmaking itself is just so important. So I just want to be engaged in that story. And like Keith said, with time, it could be a 5-minute film, or it could be a 25-minute film, or a feature. And if time goes by and I'm just invested in that story, then that's a great film to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, right, story is really everything. We actually had some really interesting conversations on the coffee chats around like, right, how, what's like for us, as let's say the guys here, right, kind of how we judge films versus Crystal as a female, and kind of what that could look like, which actually is a really good point. I'm something that we should actually think about is like, how are we giving everybody that chance of like, female filmmakers and African American filmmakers, and having those, and for those who are watching, this is not just our judging team, there's a lot more of us, but these are the ones who can make it. These are the better ones, like I have to say. But I know. So you guys have like picture or like story being everything. I know for me, watching a film, very similar to you guys. I want to be able to be really excited about the characters. I'm also a big fan of like, this is where I guess I'm a little biased, is like I'm a big fan of Dan Harmon's Story Circle, which you guys I've probably heard me say that a million times. Right? It's like an exciting moment that kind of sucks you right into the film. And I think that's a lot of these films that we have here this year, that they just immediately do that. I am a visual guy. Like I like, there was some films that cinematography this year were just amazing. And I think that also is very intriguing. I'm more likely to watch that. Even if it's a slow burn in the story, like I'm still more excited to watch really good cinematography and then build that up to that. But it's really, sound is definitely everything. Is really important. I think sound is like is more important than anything, because again, sound is it's really hard to get through a film that has really really poor sound. It's rough. But actually, no, it's interesting. Go ahead, buddy.
I was gonna say I agree too. As much as I love the overall feeling of everything, I tend to get sucked into the nitty gritty technology of everything. What kind of editing, what kind of lighting are they using? I get stuck in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for people to spike a camera too.
Yeah, that's my my wife always says this. Like my wife goes, "You're like the worst person to watch a movie with," because I'm just like that edit seemed weird to me. And that edit's like I'm like just watch the movie, just watch the movie. So, but that's why we have those other judges who don't have that lens look through of like the technical side of it. I mean, ultimately, it definitely does come down to a story. I mean, so right. I also like to talk about music in general because Keith, you kind of touched base on like having a composer. Like how much does music play a part for you in judging higher? Being you are a composer and a sound designer, what does that entail for you?
I clearly I'm sensitive. I have an exposed nerve to it, whether I want to or not. So the first thing I can usually tell is if it's placed music or if it's music written intentionally for the film. And that doesn't change the score in one way or the other. It's just two different paths to get to the same type of outcome. It's just your process is going to be more difficult. So in the end, it's down to director and editor making the right choices for the scene. So I'm always conscious of, is that music helping push that scene and get across whatever emotion that the story is supposed to be telling? Am I feeling the same thing from the music that I am from the story and the picture and the dialogue?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm extremely aware of that.
Yeah, it is. So I go back and forth with this a little bit, and Keith, you probably are gonna hate me for saying this, but it's like stock music. I think is somewhat good until you hear it in two different films that were submitted to your film festival. So then you immediately know it was stock music. So Joe, right? You are on the judging committee for a pretty large film festival out in Los Angeles. I mean, has that ever happened to you where you start to hear the music in several different films? Because you guys are thousands submissions.
Yeah, for sure. Is the audio better, by the way?
Yeah, you just
really quiet.
Okay.
Quiet. So we're talking about.
It's probably the Safari thing, I guess. Yes. So, I have seen the same music in multiple films. Sometimes some people use it better, but you do get used to it and you are aware of it. And honestly, it does affect your decisions sometimes, right? Or like,
yeah. I guess you hit it. Yeah.
But yeah, to get back to your cinematography point, I watched a film this morning actually that I didn't really get at all, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful. They took the time with the cinematography, the shots, and it kept me invested. I wasn't looking at my watch, so to speak. And I ended up grading it well because I was invested in it and I was interested in where it was going, even if I didn't necessarily get it. Maybe somebody else would. I didn't.
Yeah. I think from a stock music standpoint, because we've seen it in Fort Myers too, where we watched the film, this is a really good film, and watched another film, we're like, oh, it's the same music, which it sort of takes away from the film itself. But at the same time, it also depends on how they use it. I mean, if they use stock music really, really well, and you can, then again, it comes back to the story being so good. But yeah, I mean, it does sort of you start to realize oh, this is stock music.
I haven't experienced it with two films in the same festival. Not yet. I haven't experienced that, but
yeah, you'll see it in some of the submissions. You'll hear it because you have filmmakers all over the world submitting. And you start to hear it a little bit. And I don't think it would. For me, it's all right. How do they use that music? Is it like a stock music? That's why the great thing about stock music is it does save you money from getting a composer. Although a composer is in our opinion, the best way to go because it's original to that. Kudos to you, Keith, for being in that field. But that's one thing with using stop music in films is you do have that sort of like catch where like you don't know who else is submitting to this film festival, and someone they could hear the same music. I've actually been in situations where I've watched a film and then literally the next film I'm watching is like I'm like, is this the same movie? I'm like, it's actually the music. I'm like, oh, they use the same. They went to like music bed or something like that. But I've also seen at the same time like stop music was used really really good, and I'm like that's amazing. And that's at the end of the day that's what gets into that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a plus or a minus to use the stock music, but I think in some cases I've seen it used where you get the sense that it was there just to fill a role and fill a hole, but wasn't really put in mindfully and thoughtfully. But I mean, music is music. You just have to put the same energy into whatever you're choosing and make sure it really fits. I mean, not everybody's Zach Braff and can just pick something off an iTunes playlist and it's perfect for their film.
You're right. I think what's important about music too is you have to look at it. It's like it's another character in the film, right? Like you need it to fit in with the story that you're telling and not be so random or someone just throwing something in like carelessly. Like it's so important because like the music for me, like as I can speak for myself, like I'm married to a composer as well, and like it's so important, and you need to put so much care into it, and it can really make or break a story. I mean, for me, like, if I hear something and I'm just, again, like distracted by the music and I'm like, well, that doesn't really fit with what's going on the screen, like I'm out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's another character in that film. You have to care for it, as the director and as the, screenwriter, everyone on the team, like you have to really put as much time and effort into it as well.
Yeah, totally. Joe, you were sort of whispering there because your microphone, you had something to say.
Yeah, sorry about that. I apologize for this.
Technology, man.
No, yeah, it's like, does the music fit the story you're telling? I think, and Crystal and Keith both said that, and that was my thought. It's like, just,
I mean, yeah, good story and good sound are, I mean, the two key elements to it. I also, we should put a disclaimer now. While we're giving sort of our insight of what, how we sort of judge films, what we look for really good films and selection processes, this does not mean that we are like the end all be all for, what we are saying might work for this film festival and it might not necessarily work for things like Sundance. So for those watching, just keep that in mind. Everybody, one of us here have had a chance to play at a lot of different film festivals. We've had a chance to judge different film festivals. We have a little bit of insight, but I don't want anyone to like run with this and take what works and leave what doesn't. But yeah. So I will talk about another big topic, a question that came through in our Instagram Q&A is how much does length play a part in the selection process? And we'll start with you, Crystal.
I think it plays a big part of it because you want, I believe, like as a programmer for a film festival, you want to show as many films as possible. So, if it's a short, I think you want to keep it in the 10, 12 minute time length. But if it's a really great story and it's something that you need that time, then, go for it. And the story is going to speak for itself. The film's going to speak for itself. But I think time is important, especially in a festival.
Yeah, totally. I wish you didn't go first. You stole my answer, but
sorry. I talk a lot.
No, it's okay. It's good. Joe, I mean, right? You judge a very large festival out in LA and us as well that receives thousands of submissions. So, how for you? What's the length? How big of a part does that play in the selection process?
Well, I was just thinking about this actually. Crystal sort of reminded me. So, say I have an hour to watch submissions. I get up in the morning and I have an hour to see submissions. So I log into the page and all the films come up that I need to watch. And there's a 43-minute film, and then there's like a 7-minute film, a 3-minute film, a 1-minute film, a 5-minute film, a 12-minute film. You know, I'm probably going to try to watch as many of the shorter films as possible and save that 43-minute film till I have more time.
Right.
So I think it's the same way in programming, right? Like if you can get a lot more good films in, you know, that maybe are shorter lengths. I don't know. It's just, you know, sometimes I see that 43 minutes and I'm like, I want to watch like 5 or 6 today. I'm going to put that one off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think I ever even thought about that.
Absolutely.
That's a good point, right? So a shorter film, you probably are going to be seen sooner in the process than you would a 43 minutes. That does happen, right? I mean, a lot of us all have different projects going on. So, you know, obviously we're going to watch every single film to its fullest, no matter what. And that's something that we pride ourselves on as a film festival. Is I know a lot of festivals out there you just submit to, and you're like, did they actually watch this film? Right? It's like, but we watch every single film that comes through us, and from our level 1 judges, the film has to be judged, I believe it's 7 or 8 times before it actually goes to level 2, just so that we have a good kind of balance of that. But yeah, length from a programming standpoint, that's major. Because Crystal, right, you made a great point. Is if I have a, you know, like a 5-minute short films that are just amazing and out of the water, and I have a 30-minute short film that's also equally amazing. As a film festival, we want to be able to help more filmmakers, and we want to be able to get more filmmakers to connect with each other. So I'd rather have, you know, those 5 amazing short films. I can help more filmmakers that way versus that 1 30-minute. So I guess like from an independent standpoint, if you have a longer short film, you're already against the odds, no matter how good your film is. If it's like, you know, you have a big star in it, you had a $30,000 budget, the odds are always against you no matter what, because festivals receive thousands of submissions. I mean, we receive a little over 1,000 every year. And some, I mean, like, I can't even imagine what the LA one that you do, Joe, is. That's probably, yeah. Joe never left his house in over a year, so he just watched every day.
I tell you what, as a filmmaker too, watching these films and all these submissions, it makes you better, right? Because you're getting all this. You see from, you know, I mean, the whole grand scheme of everything. So
yeah.
Kyle, I think too, it's important to, like, this is a teachable moment, right? This is supposed to be kind of like a peek behind the curtain of a film festival. So things were touched on by you, Crystal, and Joe that are important, but I think for the sake of clarity, just taking a step back and talking about the fact that, especially if you're new to festivals, you know, taking your films and submitting them to festivals, it was something I wasn't aware of until I became part of the process. But, you know, the concept of programming that makes or breaks a festival. That's, like, to me, that's the foundation of it, is how the programming is done. And you're not, when you submit a film to a festival, it feels like it's just a blanket, like I'm just throwing it into the pot. But it's really not. Every step of the process, it's, if you do move on, where are you going to fit in? It's almost like figuring out where everybody's going to sit at a wedding. You know, we want people that are going to get along together at the table. You don't want any fighting. So the blocks are put together. You know, it's not just thrown together. It's these very organized blocks that are organized with films that are complementary. And if a block is supposed to be so much time, how many films can you get in? And of course, we want to showcase the best films. But to Kyle's point, if we have an opportunity to get, you know, 5 to 10 films in a block, we're going to go for that because we want to showcase as many artists as we can. Whereas those longer films really make it difficult to get it in a place that doesn't disrupt or make blocks too long, because, you know, when we're in person, you're talking about people sitting in seats for hours. So they got to get a rest, so the blocks can't be too long, and the blocks have to be organized by, you know, what works together. And try and get the timing so one really flows well into. I mean, I remember the first festival I went to. I thought I was still watching the same film because it was so well programmed. You get reminded because the credits come up, the end credits. So, but that's really important to keep in mind is when if your determination is not just to put your message out, but also to be in film festivals and try and get into the programming, you need to be mindful of what there has to be some calculation as to, okay, if I'm going to do this story, is 20, 30, 40 minutes or a feature film, is that helping me or is that hurting me? So,
Yeah,
thought I'd set it out.
No, that's a really good point. That's actually some really good advice for anybody watching and people who are submitting films. Is do your research on the festival. That I mean, I take that as a filmmaker, and look at like previous years of like what they're looking for, and also like make sure that because there are filmmakers out there who just do mass submitting. We know this because I can tell you every single year, we always have a film that's been submitted to our festival about 3 or 4 times the same year. So they paid for, and we try to like reach out and refund them. It's like, but hey, did you know you already submitted? I thought Film Freeway stopped you, but I have like we have the same film in submission sometimes 2 or 3 times over. I don't know if they have different project pages, but doing your research to making sure that your film fits in there. Do they actually, if your film is 30 minutes long, do they submit to, or do they take films? Like look at their past programming. Have they taken films that are more than 30 minutes long? If they only taken like Tribeca is one of them. Tribeca takes maybe 1 or 2 30 minutes, and that's like rare they do that, but most of their films are like 7 to 10 minutes. So you have to like really look at like compare your project to if it's a good fit for the film festival itself. Right? I've judged short film festivals and people were submitting features. It's like, do your research. You have to like know what you're submitting to, and you have to tie your project into that film festival for sure. A question that came up, this might sort of be how after you submit, how long should you reach out to the film festival via email / cover letter? Which is actually a pretty good question. I can answer that if you guys don't want.
Go for it.
I think this is a good practice, but also be careful just not to be really like overbearing. I have received emails from filmmakers who submitted, and they decide to email us every single day. So it's like, okay, like listen, we're gonna watch your film. We're here to help, like, but we get it. We know you are. But I will say, I don't know, I can't speak for every film festival, but we read every single cover letter that comes through. So you can put a cover letter on Film Freeway. We read those all the time. And I like the ones that are always like, it's kind of cool when they like make it personal to your film festival. Not to say that, that's going to be a make or break thing, but it's something that we can remember you by. I've gotten emails from filmmakers with something like funny, like a cat gif or something like that. And then, but the interesting thing about that, like we're going to remember that filmmaker. I'm not saying start to send, cat gifts to film festival. Like, sending an email after you've submitted or something that's like the program. I know I will. Like I'm always going to remember that. And please, whoever's watching this, do not send me cat gifts, please. Now I'm like starting to realize that people are going to start doing that. But I think that sort of goes a little bit away because it's a connection piece. I read out every single cover letter. I don't know why a festival wouldn't do that, but maybe time. I don't know. Do you guys want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, in a way, I think it goes back to doing good work too, right? If you submit a really good film that you believe in and that you're passionate about, and you've sort of, it's sometimes the work speaks for itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice to send, absolutely do a cover letter when you submit, do all that, but also trust your work to stand, on its own, and also don't be afraid to submit to multiple festivals, because I think, yes, do your research and make sure you're submitting to the right places, but also don't be afraid to submit to a lot, because that it really is true. The wider of a net that you cast, the more of a chance you have of one hitting. And
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
get into a festival, absolutely go, because that's how you're gonna, make your connections and find who you're gonna work with next, and all that stuff.
yeah, and that's a good point though, because I do completely agree with you. Is don't be afraid to submit, but do your research. Like, don't submit just because to submit, because you're gonna waste a lot of money that way. But like, just submit it, because you're gonna listen. Here's the thing. Filmmakers, there's not a single filmmaker out there that's been like, I've gotten to every single festival that I submit to. I'm awesome. Like, that's never happened. You're gonna get turned down from most of the film festivals you submit to. And as programmers, we don't like. I hate turning down a film. I hate it. I would love this, but time is a big part, and we have to also know who our audience is down in Florida. So that's a big part of it. I hate sending out the rejection letter. Even as filmmakers, we've all experienced rejection, right? As a filmmaker myself, I have submitted, when we think we submitted our film that we all worked on together, to, a ton of festivals. We got into a lot, and we got turned down for the majority of them. That's why doing your research is super important. And like, Film Freeway is great because you get to read the reviews. Don't just read the first couple of reviews. Really dive into the reviews, and you'll find like ones that are like really weird. I also think like film festivals' websites are really important. That's, I think, is an important piece too. Is like, just do it when you do research. So looking at their website, that's like a big important piece. Just do your research on the festivals. I mean, Crystal and Keith, do you guys want to add on to that? I'm talking a lot right now. Oh,
yeah. I think sorry. I think research is important. Just knowing, their product too, and like what, their, the kind of films that they choose and things like that, and if you're gonna fit into that mold or not. I think it's great to write a cover letter in that, because you want to be proud of your work, and you want to, if you want to. No, like Joe said, your work is going to stand for itself, right? But you also want to, put in a little personal touch and express how much this means to you, because we get it. We're people, right? And we understand, we're filmmakers as well. So like, we understand, like, when you put your time, your heart, your soul into something, you want to, it's your baby, right? And you want to show that to the world. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I will tell you guys a good way to, right, because I also realized that rejection, the first thing that, like, you just don't believe it. You're like, nah, they just didn't watch it. Like, and most of the time, it's not that the film is bad. I mean, let's be real. That is the case sometimes, but most of the time, it is space, right? When we picked, I think, 5 feature films out of the 32 roughly that were submitted to it. That's a ballpark guess, but right, we can't play 32 short feature films. I mean, hey, the festival's 2 months long, like, it's gonna be there. It's like too much. So you do have to like really kind of narrow it down. But the one thing I also too, I would suggest everyone watching is, make sure you hold festivals accountable, but you're not like a jerk about it. So what I mean by that is, like, we do get really sort of nasty letters from people after we turn them down. And that's not cool, because like, it's, we were, we try to look, hey, this is why. And they still, like, I think we got one 2 years ago that was just like, they were ripping us apart, and like, we remember that person. So now we're like, okay, we're not going to take your films because we don't know how you're going to act at a film festival. Right. So like, be cool about it. But also, like, hold the festivals accountable. I do know there are festivals out there, I'm sure everyone does, that who don't watch their films. So a really good way is a really good article, I think, online. If you have Vimeo Pro, you can actually track like how long a festival watched it. I think there's a filmmaker, it's such a smart idea, and I totally agree with it. He uploaded his film, like, let's say 10 times on Vimeo Pro, and then only send one link to a film festival. So that one link, all the data on that one link, the playtime, he could watch that if they watched the whole thing or they didn't watch the whole thing. And he actually reached out to the festival like, hey, I noticed that you didn't watch this. Obviously, things are busy. And some festivals actually gave them their money back. And some festivals didn't because, that they're mean. But yeah, that's a great, Vimeo Pro is a paid service, but it's a really good way to make sure your film's being watched, because that is the standard that I think festivals should be held accountable for. Is you need to watch, and like I said, I pride ourselves that we do this, is we watch every single film that comes through. Every single one. We don't watch, all of us don't watch every single film, but someone on our judging committee watches every single film. Obviously, these guys at Tier 4 selection process can't watch 1,000 films. We'll be planning the festival out 2 years in advance. So, but yeah, it's a lot. But that's why. But every single film that comes through is watched fully, more than once for sure. So that's, I think. But hold those standards, hold us accountable. But yeah, anything to add on to that? Sorry, I'm rambling. Okay. All right. So the other question I think someone popped up is, right, how, and we asked this question on the short film panel yesterday, is how important is it to submit to Tribeca, TIFF, Sundance, the big top tier festivals? And we'll start with Keith on this one. You didn't go first yet.
So how important is it? That's a tough question, because you could read that a couple ways. It's as important as you deem it to be, first of all. That's kind of a cop-out, so I'm not going to stick with that one. I remember early on, Kyle and I talked about starting to submit to festivals. And, of course, I was like, South by Southwest, Tribeca, naming all these huge festivals. And the thing that we talked about, and he informed me about, is right in line with what you just said, Kyle, is that do your research on the festivals. Although they're the biggest names, they're the biggest names for a reason. And it's typically because the filter by which they judge films is so fine that most submissions do not get through. One of them, you have to help me remember, one of them we were talking about, I think it was Sundance, right? It was single-digit percentage applicants actually got picked up.
Yeah, it's 0.001. It's I think they received, and we or thankfully we've had Sundance filmmakers here who gave us some insight. I think they receive 30,000 submissions every year, and they take 100.
Tiny fish in a big pond. So I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is, when you set out to make a film and you choose to submit it to festivals, you're building your budget based on the film process, in production, post-production, and then where does it go? And if you have that budget and you just expect to spend a ton of money on a bunch of festivals, and hearing what we're saying in this chat that you're going to be rejected from most of them, it's better to invest wisely than just say, yeah, I submitted to Tribeca. I didn't get in, but I submitted. So it's only as important as you think it is, but you have to really feel like you have a winner that stands outside of the crowd to even put your money into it. Otherwise, whatever you don't spend on giant festivals, because they're usually the most expensive too, whatever you don't spend on those festivals is money for your next film.
Right.
It's more important that you build and work on your craft than submitting to festivals that might be outside of your grasp, and you need to be honest with it. And then the last thing I would say too is surround yourself with people that are brutally honest, and solicit feedback and say, do you think this is good enough to hit in these different festivals? And hopefully that person will be honest with you. And if the answer is yes, then it's worth the gamble. But if you get a no, then it's cool. You can always have the next film.
Yeah,
that's why we do it.
Joe, what about you, man?
A lot of great points. I agree. I would say, also, if you never know unless you take a chance, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So maybe, you know, you've made something, you're proud of it, you believe in it as you should, and you know, throw caution to the wind and submit to one. You know, pick one. Like, okay, Sundance. And then you know what? You can always say, hey, I submitted to Sundance, right? Or, oh my God, I'm going to Sundance.
yeah,
I mean, you
Yeah.
just you don't know. You never know. But,
right.
so I think, you know, we can't forget that. Just take a chance sometimes. But definitely, you know, maybe pick one and then like, you know, 20 of, you know, whatever. That's all I have.
Yeah.
to add.
Crystal, anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with both Joe and Keith. I think, yeah, like you said, like you don't know unless you try. But it's good just to pick one because you know they are expensive to enter. And if you really believe you have something and you have a story that maybe hasn't been told or whatever, like you know, go for it. I don't see it hurting, right? But if you don't get in, don't take it to heart, right? Because like the odds aren't really like in in favor, quite honestly. Like, it's just, you know, just like when you apply to colleges or you apply to wherever, like, you know, you have to trust that you are where you need to be, right? And just keep making those films, keep working on your craft, keep getting better, stronger, and doing something that you love. And that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
And be proud of it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that's I tell people I don't ever discourage from submitting to those bigger tier festivals. I mean, yeah, they are an experience, but I think some people will discredit the smaller ones. Like, if they don't get into Sundance, it's not a big deal.
Right.
When realistically, the smaller ones are, I think, quite frankly, the more fun because you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Realistically,
Yeah.
where like if we go to Sundance, right? Like if I go to Sundance, I'm no one knows who I am, so I'm like, they're like, oh, you're a filmmaker, cool, great, right? But you're dealing with like thousands of people. You could be easily get skipped over. But I think submitting to those top tier ones is good, right? Again, do your research, but I won't recommend submitting to just be prepared to like be okay with wasting that money because right, the odds are absolutely against you, especially if you have like a 30-minute short film.
Yeah.
So right, you have a 30-minute short film and you're submitting to Sundance, the odds of that are already crazy against you, and that 30-minute length is just adding more to that. So, but yeah, it is good to like submit and just to see, but don't discredit the smaller festivals. There's a lot of really great festivals that we've had the chance to travel to and learn from as filmmakers and as programmers. Fort Myers, there we are, right? So like those festivals are like sometimes those smaller ones will give you better opportunity to rise above, and it's okay. I don't think the number of festivals that films get into is like super important either. I mean, yeah, it's great. It absolutely is. I've seen posters that with like laurels that are just like amounts, but all those opportunities at the festival should be an opportunity to network with people and be able to talk and be able to meet and be able to build connections. Because who knows, maybe you're actually meeting those people that you might go out and you might make your Sundance film,
Right. Yeah.
We had a Sundance filmmaker on the short film panel, and he says, it's great. It was the most fun he ever had. Didn't do anything for his career, but he had good fun. It's like, so yeah. So like, I mean, for those watching, like, yeah, definitely submit if you feel like you have something that is good for that festival. Just be careful. Don't waste your money, and don't be prepared for a rejection, because that's a part of this process. And know that the programmers no one likes to turn down films. I mean, we don't go through and be like, not selected, this is fun. Like, we don't do that. It's just like, it's because people do put like their heart and soul in things, and right, it's never easy to get that rejection letter, but I think you have to realize there's a lot more than just, doesn't discredit your film. We've had to turn down great films at this festival before just because of time.
Right.
The ones that are like, this is so good. We've actually turned down films that went into Tribeca later on. Like, it's crazy. And vice versa. You might get into a bigger one, not get into a smaller one, and you might get into a whole bunch of smaller ones and none of the bigger ones. But I think really, if you got to think about what the purpose of the film festival is for, and that brings up a good point. Is another question for you guys is like, how important is it to attend those film festivals that you do get selected to? Joe, let's start with you on that question, man.
Very important. Not only do you get to travel, right, and see the country, see the world, which is amazing, and gives you more experiences to put into future projects that you make, but also the people that you meet and making those connections, and those friendships. We form friendships traveling around, with films and people that we still keep in touch with and connect with and work with. And then just being giving yourself a pat on the back and being proud that you've made something and sitting in that theater and seeing your work on the screen and just the emotion, the roller coaster that you go through. I mean, I wouldn't trade any of those experiences, that we've had on our films for anything. I mean, it's something you should experience, so I'm 100%. If you submit and you get in, go. Pull out all the stops and do it because you won't regret it.
Yeah. Crystal and Keith, anything to add to that?
Yeah. I think, like Joe said, networking is so important, and you get to go to these festivals all over, the country, all over the world, if you can, and you get to meet people from all walks of life and get to see other stories and get to talk to them, and they can be like, oh, I saw your film. And then you're networking, right? And like you said, Kyle, like you don't know what that connection can turn into, right? And you can meet more people that are on your team and you can make a film with them or whatever. It's all about networking and just meeting people and getting to hang out. And like you said, Joe, just being really proud of what you made. It's like, it has to be the coolest feeling in the world to just sit in the theater and be like, yeah, I was there and I know what that day was like.
Yeah.
And, what I went through to get that shot or whatever it was. Just that's an amazing experience.
Yeah. Keith, anything to add on, man?
Yeah, let me see. All of those things. And then I think there's few opportunities to be amongst large groups of people that share the same passion that you do, that come from essentially two different areas, those who love to make films and those who love to watch them. You have two things, right? You have all the filmmakers that you get to meet, and you also get the patrons that are in that town that just love to go see movies and they buy passes for a block or for a day or for the entire festival. And the feedback you get from movie lovers is sometimes as valuable because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand the craft, but they know how to communicate how it made them feel. Mm-hmm. And then, meeting filmmakers that, when you're new to it, you go and you meet filmmakers that are ahead of you and have had all these experiences, and they say, I remember when that kind of stuff happened to me. And then you slowly become the person that's acting as that mentor to the next group of people. And then the other part about it too is if you're going to submit to a film festival, the part of the networking process is sure you want to meet other people that are doing the same things, and you may make some long lasting relationships with people that you can coordinate with and work together and create new things. But it's also, you meet filmmakers and you say, when's your film playing? And then they ask you the same thing, and you're drumming up audiences for your own film. I mean, that's,
yeah.
The seats don't fill themselves. So you have to be willing to take that time and put that energy out and get other people to say, oh, by the way, this is what my film's about. This is what some of my struggles were and some of the funny parts and some of the, what the process was. I would love it if you'd come see it. And man, the number of filmmakers we've met that are so supportive, that not only go and watch your film, but track you down as soon as that block is over, just to grab you by the shoulder and say, hey, I watched your film and I was really impressed by these things. And, and then that conversation picks up again. And then by the end of the week, you have a drinking buddy.
Yeah, right. That's true though. But I mean, I think you guys all hit on really good points. I think making an effort to travel to festivals, I know for us, is really important. Right. But we also want to say, like, people, you can't go to every single one of them. To traveling costs money, and not every festival are going to put you up to fly you down. I mean, I don't think Sundance even does that. I could be wrong, but right. So I guess it gets up. So definitely pick the ones that you will want to go to. Actually, when we as filmmakers submit, usually we find places that we have never been to. So we're like, oh, let's just go there. Let's submit there.
Get in. Go back too.
It's great. Excuse to go to LA or Vegas. So I think, yeah, but I mean, trying to attend is really important because there's this myth that film festivals, it's their responsibility to fill the theater for your film, which is totally wrong. Because you have to realize something, right? Fort Myers in general is responsible for promoting 130 films that we have selected this year, right? The filmmaker is responsible for promoting one film. So who do you think has the upper hand in that? So I love it when filmmakers come out and they have like posters and they talk to people because right, historically we know that a theater is more likely to have seats in it when they meet the filmmakers. Obviously, playing time is a big part of that. Like that's why also research that is when festivals start their screen times. I mean, I've seen festivals that, hey, your screen time's at 7 a.m. It's like, okay, I don't even get up that early. So it's gonna be pretty hard to get anyone to be like, can you come up at 7 a.m. to go watch a film that probably means nothing to you? That'd be great, wouldn't it? That's why Fort Myers, we start all of our stuff at 3 p.m. Also because it's the beach. You get to go hang on the beach all day. Come on. But I mean, people who come and attend and have posters and talk about their film and are invested, that goes a long way, not only for their own films and getting season there, but it's something that we will remember them by as programmers. So that is something that's huge. Where if we will remember you, and that's great. And also when you go and support, I have a pet peeve about this, and I'll stop my rambling. But I have a pet peeve of a filmmaker going to support another filmmaker, and that filmmaker just doesn't even go support that other filmmaker. That drives me crazy. Obviously within reason. It's like, hey, actually, unfortunately, I can't make your block because I have dinner with family that night. That's one thing, but I think too often we've seen filmmakers come, they show up just for their block, and they just don't ever come back to the festival. That's from a festival standpoint. We know that, but it's people who are more be engaging at festivals, talk to the programmers, meet them, and just because those are people that we want to bring back. I mean, there are people that we met this week that we want to bring back next year if we can. Obviously, we still have to go through the judging process, but because they'd just be so much fun to hang out with in person and to be drinking buddies with. Keith, there you go, one for you. I think so. That's really good. I think don't be a jerk at festivals. Don't I think egos are a big thing. Don't keep your ego at home. This is another weird pet peeve. I have a hard time with filmmakers talking down to other filmmakers. They're at the same festival. I've had that happen to me a couple times where a filmmaker would be talking. I was at a festival in Joe and I. We were there in Cincinnati, and the filmmaker was talking down to me. I think he said to me, "He's like, oh, you're gonna do really well in this industry." I was like, "Okay, thanks, man." I was like, "We're in the same festival right now. We were both official. I don't know. This is your first short film. Not so just be cool and realize that I think at the end of the day we're all here to support each other. Right. So yeah.
To just support each other, right? We've all been in that block, that short film block, right? Where the one film brings 15 people and they screen first, and then the theater empties out.
I can't stand when that
other films that don't.
I can't stand when that happens.
So,
it's
that's a pet peeve of mine, actually.
Yeah, when they just all right, we're leaving. Good night. Thanks
support the other for their film. They can go have a party.
And then they come back for the Q&A.
Yeah.
They'll school. Wait, watch. Everyone's
the one thing I'll say on that. The one thing I'll say on that too is, even though we're part of the judging process, the one thing I enjoy is when the festival week finally happens. Even though we've seen these films, we're always excited to see them again.
Yeah.
So we run around from one theater to another because we want to see some of these films again. So We have a lot of really deep-seated, genuine passion and enjoyment for this.
Yeah, and that's I hope people don't think like, oh, we gotta be this like amazing filmmaker. It's like, no, you don't. But just there is I like to call it film festival etiquette, right? So if don't get up in the middle of someone else's screening if you're in the same block like after your film's over. I think that is, I mean, yeah, there's one-offs like, hey, I got an emergency film call, of course, but like more often than not, people are just all right, my film's over and we'll leave. Go and support other filmmakers too. Like, no one's expected to like, hey, you need to watch every single film that every filmmaker you meet this week, you have to go see their film. Like, no one's expecting that, but like, right, if you're gonna go to the festival, don't just show up to your block and no one else's block and expecting everybody else to show up to your block. That's just right. That's just not cool.
Right.
As programmers, we will remember that. So if you're attending a festival, like I noticed that, not to say that that person won't be invited back, because again, but if there's somebody we really like have met and we'd like love to see their future work, like actually there are a couple of filmmakers like I mentioned before that they've already told me to submit it. I've already flagged that for like, hey, just rate this one and bring it to tier 2 when you guys can, just so we can all watch it. And that's like, because we want to bring the people back because they're great. They're 10. They want to have fun. We like to have fun. So it's just film festival etiquette. I mean, Joe, we've helped, not that people need to do that, we've helped festivals put up step and repeats as filmmakers just because like, hey, that's just us. Well, cool guys. Well, hey, I hope for everyone watching that gave us a little insight. Obviously, we sort of go off on a rampage a lot. I think that's just who we are. But it's good to see you guys. As always, hopefully we can all grab a beer soon once this is all over and done with. COVID, not film festival. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. No
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Kyle.
you.
Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.
You too.
All right. Sounds really cool, guys. I hope that gives you guys a little bit of insight sort of on our process. I know that was a lot of information at once. If you guys actually have any further questions about it, feel free to shoot us an email. I will be happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Or actually, if you also want to be a judge in this and you don't have a film that's submitted to us, email us. We're also looking for judges all the time, too, who can just rate some films here and there as a level 1 judge. But yeah, so just please, we still got a whole day left. Our awards are coming up very soon. I think it says 7 o'clock, but it might be at 7:38 because we have another Q&A at Core Lines with it. But until then, guys, I will see you guys at the movies.